Are we live? Welcome, good thinkers. Welcome to Good Thinking Live. Glad you are here. If you know the drill, you know to let us know who you are and where you're from. This is a conversation. We want everyone to be participating in the chat, and I'm going to pull your comments in so this becomes part of a conversation and less of a lesson, although this is going to be a little mind-blowing today. This is the time that we usually gather, good thinkers from around the world, gather each week, most Mondays, most weeks, not every single Monday, but most Mondays at 9 a.m. Pacific time in the US, 4 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time everywhere else when we don't have our crazy daylight savings time switchovers. But this is the time that we gather to spend a little bit of time shifting from what to think so that we can spend a little bit of time together, 30 minutes, to focus on how we think. And in this particular case, we're going to be talking about artificial intelligence with a conversation that may be, it's going to be an unusual conversation. There's a lot of what to think that is great content out there, what to think and how to maximize, what you do to maximize ChatGPT. There are fantastic LinkedIn learning courses. I recommend one by Dave Burse that you can really take the existing technology now and use it to your advantage. But that is absolutely not what we're discussing today, because what we're going to be discussing today is how to think not only about artificial intelligence now, but how to view it out into the future. I'm going to say hi to a few people, and then I'm going to offer a trigger warning, because some people feel more comfortable viewing the future and the uncertainty that is a force in everything, and some people don't. And I want to give a trigger warning that this is going to be a little bit of a brave conversation. Okay, so let me say hi to some people. Hi, Barkley from DC. Hey, Abdurrashid, welcome here. LinkedIn user from Michigan. See, sometimes I can see who you are, and sometimes it says LinkedIn user, so be sure to say who you are so I can welcome you by name. Elaine or Alan, hi, Quebec, and you are an inventor. Okay, fantastic. We love inventors. This will be a good conversation for you. Stephen, greetings from 45 degrees north and negative 22 degrees west. Ha, a new one. Anjali from India, welcome. Claudia, welcome from the UK. So we have got a lot of good thinkers coming onto the show. I'm going to give the little trigger warning. Keep them coming. Keep letting us know who you are and where you're from. If you are someone who is uncomfortable looking out into the future with a level of uncertainty, a high level of uncertainty, this may not be the episode for you. Now, I will give rubber chickens to any good thinker who wants to work on their comfort with uncertainty, which is not easy. But I also will give rubber chickens to good thinkers who want to respect their own boundaries. So I will give a final trigger warning. If you're going to look out into the future and see some things that are scary to you, then this may not be the episode for you. All right. So we've got I love this internet technology. It amazes me after more than 20 years of playing with it. Absolutely, me too. Hello, Andrea from Colombia, and Hussam from Dubai, and Kara from Beaverton. You're right down the street from me. Nicole from Virginia. Nice. So we've got a lot of good thinkers from all over, and that's what makes this conversation interesting. Christopher from Ohio just started messing around with ChatGPT this past week for the first time. Fantastic. Okay, we're going to get to that in a minute. That's so interesting, because this is going to take your brain in a way that you may not have kind of gone before. So my first question is this. Ready? You know the drill. We start with a question. When you think of something as artificial, is this mostly a good or positive thing, or mostly a bad or negative thing? Now you could say, well, I guess it depends. Well, of course it depends. But if you were told that you're artificial, or that your intelligence was artificial, would you think this is mostly a compliment or an insult? Mostly a good thing or a bad thing? Okay. What does it mean? Put in the chat, and I'll keep going with the conversation, and you put in the chat and we'll all have this cool conversation. So what does it mean to be artificial? Fake? Inorganic? Generated by humans versus made by other parts of nature? What does it mean to be artificial? Now, the word stems from artifice, which means a thing designed to trick or deceive others, like lip syncing or plastic surgery. Distrust and resentment are built into the word itself. Okay, so now we're going to say, okay, so Abdurrajah says, embracing the habit of turning uncertainties to certainty rather than waiting for them to emerge. Fantastic. And you can do that because you could say that uncertainty is certain, as we know. All right, we need Arnold Schwarzenegger here. Okay, cyber, when he's a cyborg. Bad. Okay, so someone says artificial is mostly bad. Brenda from Ghana, welcome. And after Racha says it's usually not considered, it's considered not original, fake. If it's a sweetener, negative. If it's tech, mostly positive. Ooh, interesting. I'd be curious to see how you're thinking, what you're thinking about. I love that. Man-made. Okay, generated by human. Aha. Aha, aha. Okay, so here's a question. I'm going to move the banner out so we have more room for your comments. Just a moment. Okay, so what's artificial? A beaver dam or the Hoover Dam? Or if you want to take the biggest dam in the world, what is that? The Nurik Dam in Tajikistan. So a beaver dam or the Hoover Dam? What's more artificial? What do you think? All right, put it in the chat. And now to get to the crux of this, where we're going to go where no humans have gone before. Okay, no good thing. Very few people have probably gone before. Why is artificial intelligence considered artificial? What makes it artificial? What makes intelligence artificial? Is it the material, like the substrate? Like it's not wet like our neck-top computers, but it's like metal and mechanics and whatever, like our laptop computers? Or is it because the output is fake? Is it because the material is somehow fake? Or is it because the output is somehow fake? All right. So we've got Abdurrajah says he believes both are fake. Claudia says the Hoover are fake, not fake, artificial. The Hoover Dam is artificial. Okay. Good morning, Moses. Good morning. Good morning. Okay. So what makes intelligence artificial? One of the original descriptions of AI was computer programs that engage in tasks that require high-level mental processes, such as perceptual learning, memory organization, and critical reasoning. What makes computer programs that reason critically something that's super hard to do? What makes them artificial? All right. So now, this trigger warning: if you are not comfortable looking deep into the future with a high level of uncertainty, this particular episode may not be for you, and it's totally fine. But if you are excited and can turn your fear toward curiosity toward the future and the inevitable uncertainty, then stick around. Welcome Moses from Uganda. Fantastic. Fantastic. Okay. And so we have Tarshi. Since dams don't exist naturally, they are all artificial, man-made or beaver-made. Ooh, I love it. What does it mean to exist naturally? What does it mean to exist naturally? Ice dams are a natural phenomenon. Okay. Okay, I love it. This is so super interesting. Perhaps something's considered artificial because it's modeled after something found in nature, something humans didn't do. All right. So we've got some interesting thinking, which is really, really going to be helpful for this. So artificial intelligence is the basis for mimicking human intelligence processes through the creation and application of algorithms built into a dynamic computing environment. So basically, simply stated, AI is trying to make computers think and act like humans. That's where it kind of originated. But that's the artificial part. Let's tackle intelligence. Is it a reasonable word for describing AI? Is intelligence a reasonable word for describing what AI does now, what it will do in the future? Determining whether or not something is intelligent or possesses intelligence usually involves some kind of measurement, a measurement of abstract reasoning, language use, problem solving, or one of the many other poorly defined criteria. Deciding whether a computer is intelligent is hard because the standard for what even constitutes intelligence is hard. Now, people are going to say, oh, there's all kinds of intelligence. It depends on what kind of intelligence you're talking about. Okay, granted, that is true. But just like there are all different kinds of cars, we know what a car is. We know a car when we see it. And then we see these SUVs and we say, does it have a car chassis or a truck chassis? Is it a car or a truck? Well, we say, well, that's defined by the chassis. I don't know if that's true, but I'm throwing this out there. What is intelligence? Do you think, ready for this? Do you think machines can think? Yes or no? Probably artificial compared to human intelligence. So any intelligence that is considered different from humans is considered artificial. Fantastic. All right. That is going to just set me up. I love these comments are awesome. Okay, Cara, perhaps something is considered artificial because it's modeled after something found in nature, something humans didn't do. Elaine, is it Elan or Elaine? Elan. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing. I would like to see more AI while shopping at the Home Depot. Love it. All right. So is it relevant to ask, do you think machines can think? Do you think machines can think? Now, because some computer scientists that work in this field say no. They say they don't think it's relevant because the question of whether machines can think is about as relevant as questioning whether submarines can swim, or saying that Big Blue doesn't really think about chess is like saying an airplane doesn't fly because it doesn't flap its wings. All right. So there's some criticism of looking at AI that way. That is kind of interesting. So now we're going to go back a little bit in history. We're going to have to go quickly because there's a lot to cover here. And we got to get to the scary part. Ha ha ha. So we're going to go back in history. How old is the concept of artificial intelligence? Do you think it's over 500 years old, about 100 years old, or less than 30 years? Put it in the chat. How old is the concept of artificial intelligence? Artificial intelligence. How long? Not the actual programming, but the concept. Well, as you're putting your answers in the chat, I will tell you that the history of artificial intelligence as an idea dates back to antiquity, with philosophers mulling over the idea that artificial beings, mechanical men, and other automations had existed or could exist in some way. All right, so way back in antiquity, and now we're going to jump ahead hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years, all the way to 1921. So to this, we can ask what the source of thinking, and does the machine possess that source? Okay, Abdurrashid, you're going to get a rubber chicken because you're queuing up all kinds of things that when we get into a concept called brain organoids, we are going to be ready to blow your mind, which could be exciting or not. That's the trigger warning. Okay, so Christopher says over 100 years. Absolutely, over 100 years, over 500 years as a concept, as it turns out. Now we're going to jump to 1921 when Karel Čapek, a Czech playwright, released his science fiction play. The English translation was Rossum's Universal Robots. And this play explored the concept of these factory-made artificial people, and he used the term robots. And we think that this is in recorded history, the first use of the term robots, the first use of the word, 1921. Jumping ahead to 1950, Alan Turing, the famous mathematician and polymath, proposed a test that measured the machine's ability to replicate human actions to a degree that was indistinguishable from human behavior. Then in the mid-50s, so not that many years after Turing, the field of AI research was officially founded during the summer conference at Dartmouth College, where John McCarthy, a computer and cognitive scientist, coined the term artificial intelligence. Now, before 1949, computers didn't have what was needed for intelligence. So they couldn't store commands. They could only execute them. So they could be told what to do, but they couldn't remember what they did. And the other thing is computing was really, really, really expensive. Okay, so guess how much it costs in the 1950s to lease a computer, to rent a computer? Anyone want to take a stab? How much did it cost per month to rent a computer in the 1950s? Anyone want to take a stab? Ah ha ha, ah ha ha. All right. The cost of leasing a computer ran upwards of $200,000 a month. So only prestigious universities and big tech companies could afford to lease computers. In 1970, Marvin Minsky, a scientist and co-founder of MIT's AI lab, told Life magazine, quote, "From 3 to 8 years, we will have a machine with the general intelligence of an average human being." But why didn't that happen? It didn't happen. I mean, 1970 was a long time ago, not 3 to 8 years ago. Well, the basic proof of principle was there. There was still a long way to go toward this whole goal of like natural language processing and abstract thinking and self-recognition. And the biggest barrier was the lack of computational power that to do anything substantial. I mean, computers simply couldn't store enough information to process it fast enough. So then in the 1980s, AI rose again. We've had these kind of, yay, it's the era of AI, and then not so much. And then, yay, it's the era of AI, and not so much. So in the 1980s, AI rose again. There was an increase in funding, and deep learning was coined to describe computers learning using experience. Okay, so Ray says it was harder than they thought. Wishful thinking. Yes, it was much harder than they thought. All right. During the 1990s and 2000s, many of the landmark kind of the stated goals of artificial intelligence had been achieved. Who remembers what happened in 1997? Anyone? The reigning world champion and grandmaster Garry Kasparov was defeated by IBM's Deep Blue, the chess-playing computer program. It was a huge step toward an artificially intelligent decision-making program. The old school AI was, if this, then that. If there are ears and there are whiskers, then it's a cat. But once we got enough processing power, we could start to throw a bunch of cats in and have the computer figure out what was a cat. In 2012, Google researchers trained a large neural network of 16,000 processors to recognize images of cats, despite giving no background information, no if this, then that. I think they showed it 10 million unlabeled images from YouTube videos. But that was over 10 years ago. And 6 years ago, in 2017, the Facebook Artificial Intelligence Research Lab trained 2 dialogue agents, 2 chatbots to communicate with each other in order to learn how to negotiate. However, and here's the tricky part. This is where we're kind of delving into uncharted territory. They diverged. As they conversed, these chatbots diverged from human language. All the programming was in English, by the way, and they invented their own language to communicate with each other. What was this? Was this intelligence? Was this artificial intelligence? All right. So I sense Kasparov versus Deep Blue. You're right. Internet, absolutely. Is the presentation started yet? Hopefully. Okay. Was this intelligence? And what happened in November last year? Anyone? What happened in November? This is like just a few months ago. ChatGPT was launched as a prototype. How many of you, a couple of you said at the beginning, how many of you have started to play with ChatGPT? And now we're chugging along with what we call AI. Is it artificial? Well, when I got to this point in my prep for today's conversation, I needed to check on something. I wanted to check on something. So I typed into Google, where are we with? And Google finished the sentence for me. And I don't know how, because it wasn't stuff I was searching for. Where are we with? It finished the sentence, quantum computing. Thanks, nosy Google. Quantum computing will eventually take our processing power to ridiculous levels. Okay, just to ridiculous levels. And what powers quantum computing? All right, raise his hand. ChatGPT. Nicole, I have. Christopher, Nicole, me. Who's playing with ChatGPT? Okay, what powers quantum computers are quantum bits or qubits. And qubits, we're still not there with the whole quantum computing thing. It's just this holy grail. But once we can unleash this level of processing, no more ones and zeros, ons and offs, but every state and superposition, once we can reach that, the processing for artificial intelligence is going to change everything. Now, what powers the qubits that power, I'm simplifying, but what powers the qubits that power the quantum computers? Well, qubits can be built from a variety of technologies, superconducting circuitry, tapped ions, photons, and quantum particles of light. So remember this light part. Remember this light part. Claudia's used ChatGPT. Okay, remember this light part. Now, meanwhile, we're going to go back. We're going to put a pause in all of this, and we're going to take a little peek at the fleshier side of intelligence. How many of you have heard of brain organoids? How many of you have heard of brain organoids? Now, we've said we're those of us who are kind of playing with ChatGPT. Now, say yes or no to brain organoids. How many of you have heard them? Let me tell you what brain organoids are doing right now. Brain organoids are stem cell derived neurotissues, and they mimic the early stages of human neurodevelopment. So if you grow these cells, and there's a tricky way that it's done, very in labs actually all over the world, they will self-assemble and form anatomical structure that will resemble, not exactly, but resemble the human fetal brain. Primed with just the right amount of conditions, fed the right broth, the organoids take over their own development. Enter organoid intelligence. You're like, what? We're dealing with artificial intelligence and ChatGPT. Now we're going to get so far away from ChatGPT. Organoid intelligence. Recently, hundreds of thousands of human neurons growing in a dish coated with electrodes have been taught to play a version of the classic computer game Pong. So here's my question. You think about this. You might change your mind. Is organoid intelligence artificial? Haha. Well, I'm not really sure what this is. Is organoid intelligence artificial? Okay, so Nicole has heard of these brain organoids. Mind blowing, right? Mind blowing. Let me give you a little background on this. In 2006, Shinya Yamanaka, a biologist at Kyoto University in Japan, opened a new way to study the human brains. And the problem is, there's a real reason for this, because it's really difficult to study human brains, because any kind of subject that you can do testing on that could be very similar to a human brain, but the differences are actually more significant than the similarities in a lot of cases. And so that's why a lot of brain disorders and brain diseases, or things that we think are just brain diseases, but they're diseases that touch the brain, are very difficult to research. There's a whole bunch of reasons for that. So there's a lot of incentive. So this researcher found a cocktail of 4 proteins that can turn ordinary skin cells into stem cells. And these could then have the potential to turn into neurons, muscles, or blood cells. Building on that advance, other researchers learned to get stem cells to grow in these as like miniature organs in a dish. And in 2013, a team of researchers in Austria succeeded in producing small, short-lived brain organoids for the first time. Now, scientists have continually have to now replace, things have grown since the 2013, and scientists have to continually, with these organoids, they continuously replace the broth that feeds the cells as they go. Oh, and here's maybe the creepy thing. The scientists have to keep a careful eye on these cells and guide them. Otherwise, and this is a quote, they can become other stuff. What is this other stuff? That's the $1 million, the $1 trillion question. Now, at University of California, San Diego, researchers are using these brain organoids to create, in miniature, inherited brain disorders and brain infections. And they're also trying to grow bigger and more complex brain organoids. In one recent experiment, scientists linked a brain organoid and this spider-shaped robot so that the two could exchange signals. The computer translates the organoid's electrical activity, this blob of whatever that is firing activity, to instructions for removing the robot's legs. All right. As the robot moves, it uses sensors to detect when it gets close to the wall. And then the computer relays those signals back to the organoid, communicating with the organoid in the form of electrical impulses. So what if you could add neurons that sense pain? Or what if we could start recording memories in these organoids? Now, as Christopher Koch, the chief scientist and president of the Allen Brain Institute in Seattle said, quote, the closer we come to this goal of adding pain receptors, the more likely we'll get a brain that is capable of sentience and the feeling of pain, agony, and distress. This is where it gets a little weird. Now, a major brain organoid expert recently said, what if we start recording memories in these organoids? There are some of my colleagues who say these things will never become conscious. And this is the turning point where this researcher says, and many like him say, now I'm not so sure. Now, remember how those qubits that power quantum computers may be built from light? So now we're going to take this mind meld of wetware, like our neck-top brains, like these organoids made of human stuff, whatever that is, and the hardware that we call artificial, made of stuff, all of which send out electrical impulses, and we start to meld them together. What makes them artificial? So if I get a limb that's fake and you call it an artificial limb, I might not be insulted. But how much of my body do I have to take my, all the stuff that's my brain and put it into my body? How much do I have to put it into my body before I start to become artificial? Where do we draw the line? Because in 2016, there was a project scientist who figured out how to stick these organoids to the bottom of a well that was lined with 64 electrodes. And when a neuron in the organoids fired, one of the electrodes would light up. So the organoid could energize this transistor and fire up this light. Now, it's a very low amount of light, but as we evolve and get better and better, could an organoid generate an electrical impulse that could make a transistor fire enough of these light protons to make a qubit to operate a quantum computer? This whole circular thing where this organoid is this artificial? Is an organoid artificial? Is an organoid, now that you know what it is it artificial? And if so, what part is fake? What part is fake? So Barkley says, is it different if the tools you add to your body brain aren't permanently attached to you? Okay, what does it mean to be permanently attached? What does it mean to be permanently attached? I mean, we all have heard stories of implants that get meshed up and entangled with, all kinds of material, bodily material, cells. I can't take that pacemaker out because it's all entangled in your muscle fibers. And, so what does it mean to be permanent? Great question. What part is fake? The organoid who sent the neuron firing to the transistor, the electrode that fired the light, the qubit that was powered by the light, or the computer that was powered by the qubit that ran intelligence? Aha. And here's thanks to Barkley for asking the fascinating question that generated this whole thought. I'm going to bring in Nicole's point. That's an interesting outlook and question. Can we go in reverse? Can you become artificial as a humanoid? All right. I love that. I'm going to actually give that one a rubber chicken. I'll tell you why. Then I'll tell you Barkley's question, and then we'll leave it with uncertainty. All right. When you look at the evolution of humans, Homo sapiens, and you kind of look at that chart and it starts really small with like a little crump over monkey or ape or whatever, and then it goes to. Now we think about it as like, okay, we are there. We are Homo sapiens or Homo sapiens sapien. Like we are there. We from now on, this is like no more evolution. It's just going to be like this. But maybe this is the key. You are Borg. Resistance is futile. Now, these are things of science fiction, stories, whatever. But are they? There are already organoids growing in a metal container sent up into space to see the effect of zero gravity on human developing brains. So here's Barkley's question. Will there ever come a time when it's considered insulting to refer to any kind of intelligence as artificial? What do you think? Will AI get upset or hurt or angry at us? Because most of you said it was a negative thing. Will AI be hurt or angry with us for dismissing its capabilities as artificial? And what if those capabilities get implanted into us? And everything I look up in Google now becomes something that I just kind of scratch my cheek and the answers come to me because I'm intelligent, or the processing comes to me. But instead of me looking it up on my phone, it's implanted in a microchip and it's part of who I am. And now you say, Becky, you have artificial intelligence. How dare you? So what do you think we should label it? Will we have to be defending artificial intelligence like we're defending so many identities that we have disparaged over the years? Who knows? What do you think we should call it? Anyone want to put in? So if you are joining us during the show, great. You know all the answers, you know all the questions. But if you're joining after, and share this, because these are kinds of conversations that we need to be having. It's very enticing and exciting to try all these newfangled things and what to do about it. But how to think about these things are going to be fundamental to our future decision makers and our future as humanity, as humans, or as Ellen says, as Borgs, humanoids, as Nicole says, humanoids. So how about cognitive computing, increasing the abilities of our computer machines so that they may copy or surpass our ability to find solutions to problems through logic, inference, and calculation. Anyway, thanks for joining. It's a very interesting kind of world we are heading toward. And Barkley has one last comment. Alternatively, artificial organic intelligence may be possible. I completely agree with that. But what makes it artificial? What makes it intelligent? And eventually, what makes it organic? The existence of carbon? Anyway, hope you have a great week ahead. Thanks for joining, and we'll be back most likely, I think, next Monday. You could subscribe on YouTube, Becky Saltzman, hit that bell for notifications, and mostly streaming live from LinkedIn, Monday mornings, 9 a.m. Pacific time, 4 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time. Keep your comments coming. Thanks for joining, and thanks for being willing to focus on how to think.